City lawyer Issa Mansour filed the first presidential election petition at the Supreme Court on behalf of three Jubilee Alliance supporters, Moses Kuria, Dennis Itumbi and Florence Jamatia. The petition documents filed by Mansour on behalf of the trio indicated their contention in the presidential poll results was specifically on the over 100,000 rejected votes that were factored in the final tally. Kuria, Itumbi and Jamatia, who are registered voters, want the Supreme Court to interpret Article 138 sub-Article 4 of the Constitution on the procedure at presidential election. The law requires that a winning presidential candidate must garner more than half of the total votes cast in the presidential race. According to the three petitioners, rejected votes do not constitute the cast votes.
Our interpretation of the law is that once a vote is declared invalid or rejected, then for all purposes of the electoral process, they should not be factored in. They are not valid votes. And so the only votes that are considered cast in law are the ones that are considered valid and they were put in the right box, for example, so that any vote that was rejected for whatever reason, either wrongly marked or wrongly, what would you call it, if for whatever reason a candidate put them in the wrong box, and of course you know that has its own problems, then that vote should not be regarded.
The three petitioners argue that while the Constitution provides the framework on the procedure of electing the president, the Elections Act and the election regulations passed by Parliament outline the specific guidelines in the electoral process. According to their interpretation of the law, a ballot is either valid or invalid, and if valid, it qualifies to be included in the final tally, and if invalid, then it should not be included in the final results.
As you can see, it's a very brief petition, but it raises one weighty issue: whether or not the IEBC could reject or could disregard the rejected votes in determining the final tally on Saturday. And that's what we want the Supreme Court to determine, not only for this election, but for future elections.
The final presidential poll results announced by IEBC last Saturday indicate that President-elect Uhuru Kenyatta garnered 50.07% of the total presidential votes cast, while CORD's flag-bearer Raila Odinga managed to get 43% of the votes cast. These results were inclusive of the rejected votes.
If the argument on behalf of our client is accepted, we have three petitioners, then the final percentage that was obtained by each candidate will significantly go up, and from our own computation, and you'll have time to look at we'll have time to look at the petition. Uhuru Kenyatta, who was declared the winner, would have the percentage of valid votes will be 50.51%. If the rejected votes are disregarded, the Honorable Raila Odinga would have 43% instead of the 43.31%. The Honorable Musalia Mudavadi will have 3.96% up from 3.93%.
The petitioner's lawyer has already served IEBC before the expiry of the period given by the law for filing of the presidential election petitions. The Supreme Court is likely to consolidate all the presidential election petitions to beat the constitutional period for conclusion of the petitions. Any person who has issues with the presidential results announced by IEBC last Saturday has until Monday to file a petition before the Supreme Court. After that, the Supreme Court will have 14 days to hear and determine all petitions relating to the presidential poll outcome. Francis Gashuri, Citizen Live at 9 at the Supreme Court, Nairobi.